Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Karishma Malde. Karishma is an osteopath and fitness coach with a passion for helping her clients relieve pain, get active, achieve their goals, and optimise their overall health. What's unique about Karishma is how she blends complementary disciplines like osteopathy and fitness training to serve her clients in a more holistic way. And be sure to listen to the end, where Karishma shares with us some tips on how we can improve our posture when working from home. So whether you're interested in knowing more about the world of osteopathy, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Karishma Malde, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Krish, I'm really excited about this conversation because, well, I don't know that much about osteopathy myself, so it's great to get a chance to chat with you and for me and for our listeners to get to learn more about this field from your expertise in this area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time if that's okay. So, Karishma, where did you grow up?
Hi, Amyr. Thank you so much. So I grew up in northwest London in Harrow, originally being from India, and moved to Surrey about 10 years ago to study, but spent the first 19 years of my life in Harrow growing up.
Yeah, I lived in North London myself, and I love that part of London. It's great. It's very beautiful, actually. And did you go to university? And if so, what did you study?
Yes, I went to university and I studied osteopathic medicine for 5 years in Epsom. And that is where I actually met my husband. And we, through my living situation, my landlady actually, he was my landlady's son's best friend, and they're still best friends. And we moved in together into North Chessington. Mm-hmm. And then we've been in Surbiton for the last 4 years now. And I've just, once you move to Surrey, you don't move back. It's just so nice to be part of Kingston Borough. So lovely to be so close to the river and nature. Yeah. And with regards to just studying, osteopathy, it was just, I felt it was my calling really, because my whole family have been, a lot of them stem from healthcare. Mm-hmm. My mum was a nurse in Ealing Hospital, and she was a social worker for many years. My grandfather was a doctor in India, sister's a pharmacist, and aunts has worked in nutrition. So it just made sense, really.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit in that I want to sort of flesh out with you throughout this conversation, Krish. But before I do so, could you tell us a little bit about your career journey before you set up your business?
I studied osteopathic medicine and a course in sports massage, and just wanted to, I first saw a physiotherapist when I was 11 years old, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. I loved the practical aspect of the job. I loved, that it's helping people. It's so rewarding. And I was always fascinated with science at school. So, going into osteopathy, it just felt like my calling, and I've not looked back since. And since been an osteo almost 6 years now, I've also trained in fitness and done bits for mindfulness events as well. And it's been a thoroughly enjoyable journey. I've met some amazing patients, had some great conversations, and just love being able to serve I worked throughout the pandemic. We're health professionals, we're key workers, but around tier 4 and just at the start of the pandemic, I, for safety, just chose to do online services. I was so pleased that was still quite popular amongst my patients, and it helped with some of their postural issues and just keeping them moving, really, because everyone has been sedentary this year.
Absolutely. And, over these last 12 months, I mean, I think everybody has had just this massive newfound respect for all the key workers in the health sector. Not that respect wasn't there beforehand, but I think everyone more than ever, and probably across the globe, just recognize that field. It does require investment. It requires thinking about it for the future because it's just so critical. So hats off to you, Krish, for even working through this period and serving your patients in that manner. That's fantastic. And to bring this conversation to the present, could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
Yes. So as you know, Amyr, I'm primarily an osteopath, and it has taken a great deal of pressure off the NHS as well, us being able to work alongside physios. For the past year, I've also co-hosted mindfulness events with my sister, and she has a platform on Instagram. She's known as the Peace Junkie and is training to be a CBT practitioner, and her day job is as a pharmacist, but she's going more towards the CBT route. And I've also co-hosted women's events with a friend of mine called Francesca, who's the owner of the Spiral Collective in Kingston. Mm-hmm. And she's a meditation teacher, Reiki healer, and herbalist. And with both of these collaborations, I would tend to take my patients through breath work, a yoga, sort of vinyasa flow. And I found that I'm usually prescribing this to my osteopathic patients anyway, on a one-to-one basis. And this past year, there have been an increase in, especially with my patients, with a growing rate of sleep issues, insomnia, depression, anxiety. It's been, it's almost like we've come out of a dark age. And I realized that a lot of the aches that people were coming in with was psychosomatic. So whilst osteopathy is a great holistic practice and it does relax the nervous system, I thought, why not try to expand this mindfulness and the breathwork and yoga to people collectively in groups, and it's been really fun. We actually, when there was a rule of 6 that come out of the government for COVID, my friend and I, Francesca, we did an event in the wood by Surbiton, and that was all social distanced. And we had 4 people on board with Francesca and I, and we actually did a women's event out in the woods, and it was brilliant.
Sounds amazing. And just listening to that, Krish, it's just, I'm always just honestly just so inspired by the guests that I've had on the show, especially during these last 12 months, and just hearing stories like the one you've just shared about how different small business owners have been scratching their brains throughout this period and pivoting their business in one way or another to continue serving their customers, but also adapting to the world we currently live in. Of course, we're recording this in March of 2021, so we're still in lockdown here in the UK, in the lockdown version 3, I guess. And I just find it super interesting that not only did you manage to pivot part of your business in that way, but also that you found strength in partnering up with different professionals from different disciplines and just providing that even more holistic service. And on that in particular, I find it fascinating that you are obviously a fitness coach as well as an osteopath. Yes. Because those two disciplines, of course, from my very little understanding, I can just see that they can complement each other really nicely. But for the benefit of our listeners, could you just expand a bit for us on what osteopathy is and how you use it as a professional to improve some elements of your clients' lives?
Yes, so thank you so much. Yes, I definitely, the fitness definitely ties in well with the osteopathy, as we would tend to prescribe stretches and strength exercises for posture and just to keep people supple in general. But osteopathy is primarily a manual, holistic profession. It's drug-free. And we are healthcare practitioners. We study at BSc level at university, with modules consisting mainly of anatomy, physiology, and neurology, bits of pathology and other modules as well. But we're treating musculoskeletal conditions, and that's the entire body, not just the back, and looking at all types of soft tissues. So as well as bones, we'd look at ligaments, tendons, joints, the whole lot. And osteopaths look at the body as a whole. So we like to live by the motto, that the body is a unit and prevention is better than cure. And we try to eliminate pain and stiffness in, all aspects of the body by addressing the root cause and then trying to keep that at bay. So once a patient is out of pain, which with just a typical musculoskeletal cause may only take, say, 2 to 4 treatments max on average. Once people are out of pain, we then show them lifestyle tips, advice on stretching and position, how to sleep, positions, and etc., just to help to keep symptoms at bay. But we don't really want patients to become reliant on care. It's more, once somebody's out of pain, how can they carry on, going about their daily life? We've helped them to return to their active lifestyle as fast as they can. They're now able to train again and do what they love. But how can we self-empower patients to carry on and just come in for the odd maintenance every month or so?
That's fascinating. Yeah. That really is really interesting, because I love the way you positioned it a second ago, that at least probably more so during these last 12 months, it's gone from not only some physical pain because of maybe bad posture or recurring or chronic back problem or something like that, Krish, but you're also seeing in your patients like there's a psychological load that's coming into the picture as well, probably as a virtue of the way the world has changed so fast over these last 12 months, I'm guessing. Yes,
absolutely. It's sad to say that many of my patients come back, some a stone, 2 stone heavier, ones that had, been motivated to do, it was great to be able to provide online services, because for I'd say half of them, I've been able to, keep them motivated and keep moving and doing some form of exercise. But with the increase in, mental health, people have probably, been at home, snacking more, moving around less. When the initial lockdown came in, we could only go for a walk for about, maximum an hour a day. It just wasn't conducive for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. So it's so important that now that I'm, treating more hands-on again, that I am addressing the sort of, fitness and weight gain, and just in general trying to help people to move around more. Postural exercises, again, posture, something that people need to work on. I actually noticed that patients working from home, where previously they'd probably worked in the office, the ergonomics changed. So you might be in a perfectly good desk setup at work in the office, but then at home, on a laptop on the bed or sofa. And so it's interesting how people came in with the same problems, more neck pain, increased low back pain from not, maybe moving around as much and doing the school run, not being able to go to the gym and gym classes. And osteopathy is, again, relaxing the nervous system. So even people that have had sleep issues, it has helped to try and give them some type of therapeutic relief as well. Definitely tried to do sort of work ergonomic assessments as well for people where I really thought, all right, this is not, they're not going back into the office. And so they benefited from that.
Absolutely. And, you touched on something that's really important there. And I wouldn't mind actually picking your brains on this front, because working from home, I think, for a lot of people has been a revelation. Maybe folks in high-stressed white-collar jobs who there was a taboo around them not commuting into London for their work. That sort of taboo has been firmly broken over these last 12 months. People have been, at least the reports we get to read are that productivity in some of those roles are up as to compared to before. Some people are much happier with not having a long commute. But equally, I think you've said it all there, Krish, there are just so many people, and I would probably put myself in that category where because we were fortunate enough that our business just continued moving, we moved our office into a spare room at home, but never really thought about those details. And 12 months down the line, the compounding of bad posture, the compounding of a setup that isn't conducive to, sitting down for hours and hours has probably started causing a lot of people a lot of issues. And with that in mind, Krish, are there any sort of tips that you could share with some of our listeners? Maybe even just things for them to think about, and they do a little mini self-assessment of any sorts when they think about their posture and their home office environment?
I think I think one of the main things I would suggest, there's two different ways of looking at it. So the first is, if you're at home and you're not 100% sure whether you've got the right desk set up, it's always worth trying to contact a health professional, even for those patients that have had qualms about coming in for, one-to-one appointments now. I've had my vaccine and everything, but it's always great. The fact is that a lot of osteopaths now offer online consultations. So, I've been able to, look at the setup a person just at their desk through a video call, see it's based on their posture, their height, where their laptop is, where how high up their chair is, everything. When people get the work assessments at work, the DSE group training, it's not specific to the individual. So if anyone that's concerned about that, it's always good to try to seek professional advice for tailored and personalized experience. And the second thing would be in terms of just to prevent stiffness and to keep low back pain. That's the most common complaint that osteopaths would see, is low back pain. Then now there's been an increased incidence in shoulder pain because we are all on our phones more, technology usage is on an increase, social media, etc. And so I've been seeing that it's almost 50-50 now, neck and shoulder pain. And the best thing I would recommend, if you're not wearing a Fitbit, is to put an alarm on your phone, get you moving around every 20-30 minutes, because often my patients, most of them would be desk workers. They're not carpenters or hairdressers as much as you think. They're the people that are sedentary. That's what puts more pressure on the low back when you're sitting down for hours and hours. They're so focused on their work, and I can put my hands up to this sometimes as well. We end up by the end of the afternoon with our face glued to the screen because we're so focused on what we're doing, not having moved for about 2 hours. And that's really, not great for the heart or our posture or, staying supple either. So keep moving throughout the day, even if it means that you need, you stop and start and the flow with your work may not be as great. It's still worth it because this is prevention rather than cure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing those tips with us, Krish. Krish, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
So Amyr, I'd say regarding the osteopathic profession and health profession itself, we, at university, we always learned that health encompasses more than just a physical aspect. Our mental emotional state is just important. And I know I've talked about this a lot. It's just that this year it really has brought importance, just how important, brought to light just how important our mental health is. And I've mentioned before that I've noticed that growing rate of patients with these concerns, and the amount of psychosomatic pain had increased. So I referred to mental health professionals such as CBT practitioners where it's appropriate, and I really felt that I could understand and relate, having tried to manage my own anxiety. I've grown up with ADHD as well, and I've always dealt with this holistically. So it's something that also wanted me to, made me go into helped me to go into understand the benefits of being in a holistic profession myself, and along with that, being mindful of our mental health is just that element of self-care. And I'd say that mid 2018, I've definitely reached burnout, and this job, it's a rewarding job. It's quite lovely to be able to help people. And at one point, I felt like I needed to save everybody from their pains. I didn't want to turn anyone around, but I realized that I wasn't striving for a balance. And I try to focus on the quality care now over quantity to achieve that balance. And I understand that you can't pour from an empty cup, and also so the mental health aspect, self-care, and I'd say just the amount I've learned of other people. So I've worked in a sports clinic as well since 2018. I do a few hours there still a week, and I previously worked in a chiropractic clinic when I first started up, and working with other imaging specialists, physiotherapists, personal trainers, other osteopaths. Being part of a multidisciplinary team, it was great to feel part of that. I feel that really helped me going into my own work for myself, and it's amazing how much you can learn through similar professions.
Absolutely. And this building of a wider professional network and actually learning relevant things from those different fields and being able to bring that into your own professional context. I myself have found that immensely important throughout the development of my career. So I definitely second that, Krish. Yeah. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I'd say that it probably was my, something I'd say is that I've always tried to remain humble in my profession, and we don't know how much we don't know, really. So I've always tried to continue professional development every year. As an osteo, I need to provide evidence that I'm continuing to read journals and attend lectures or listen to podcasts and read related material and do further courses. I carried on doing a fitness diploma. I'm currently doing one in yoga, and it's that knowledge that, like I said, working with other people, it's always that there's always something to learn. I'm pleased that I've always been able to ask for help and accept and learn from other people, and it's increased my confidence and in my skills as a result. So I think that's something that initially, when I started up, it's quite daunting going into something. And at university, we never really, this is something that I'd envisage is probably taught more to students now, but I started my degree over 10 years ago. And, things such as, even how to do your tax, or, how to actually run a business. And, we never were taught any of this. And so it's amazing, just from working in these multidisciplinary teams and other clinics, I've learned how to do this along the way. So honing in and just trying to learn skills from other people has really helped, and just to see other businesses in place working effectively has really helped as well.
Indeed, very, very cool. What next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
Yes, so I do definitely now. When the rules hopefully ease up after April, I definitely want to do more events in that wood just by Surbiton Station, as we'd had a great feedback from that. Such great feedback that the ladies had actually asked us to, commence with online events once a month. And then this Sunday, in fact, I'm doing the mindful hour with my sister. So that's all started from the good feedback. So I definitely want to do more. I think it's we want to carry on being able to provide this for people. But the outdoors are great because I'll make lunch for people, I'll provide goodie bags. But also I definitely collaborating with nutritionists as well, and perhaps doing more on social media to help to educate patients around nutritional needs for their fitness goals. A lot of people are, running marathons and doing events for charity, and often they want to know about how to best perform. And so more education and collaborations with nutritionists as well. I've cut down with the hours in the sports clinic. However, I'm definitely picking up more with the fitness, and I do the vinyasa flow as part of the mindfulness events, but thinking about introducing a stretch class for people, because I just noticed that, the amount of stretches I'm prescribing has increased since everyone's been sat down more at home. And so, I love what I do. And so there's always something that, I want to do a few further CPD courses as well. But, one thing at a time. And I think the ergonomic assessments as well, the one-to-one, I noticed they've been more popular as well. So we'll see where it goes, really.
Exciting times ahead.
Thank you.
As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So, Krish, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
So I've always had a musical background. So I actually love to, I'd say I'm an amateur guitarist, just a beginner. Excellent. Teach myself actually how to
play the guitar. We are kindred spirits.
Yes, we play the guitar as well. Amyr, you're probably a lot better than I am.
Oh, but I bet I'm not.
I might start some lessons soon, but I do. I have had violin lessons growing up. I played the violin for 8 years, and singing as well. And so it's just lovely to tap into that musical side, that creative side. And I love exercising outdoors as well. So whether it's, we're 10 minutes from the river, it's so great to be near the Thames. I love cycling around Bushy Park. I like doing yoga outdoors, and just hiking around, beautiful spots in England as well. Obviously, being a wellness enthusiast, I love trying out healthy recipes. And I loved languages growing up. So my mum, being born in India, she could speak quite a few languages, and so I studied French for A-level, did Spanish at school, and so I love reading and watching movies in these languages. It's just quite great fun, and just stimulates both sides of the brain for me, really.
It does indeed, and I definitely second that as well.
Yes.
Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I think coming out of lockdown, anyone that had suffered with pandemic blues would probably be pleased to hear that I had great fun reading this book called Ikigai. And that's referring to the Japanese secret. The book is actually called Ikigai, this Japanese secret to a long and happy life. And it's just looking at finding one's purpose in life and how one can learn to do something with, extreme joy and focus, really. But yes, The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh, who talks about tips and reminds me how to stay present, and also explains with mindfulness and meditation, it's not always just about clearing our heads. We don't need to necessarily try not to have any noise coming through. It's just about being aware of that noise, and that was quite a revelation for me to learn. But it's an easy read, really. I definitely recommend The Miracle of Mindfulness. Can read that in about a week.
For sure. And it's really interesting that you mentioned the concept of Ikigai there through that book. I haven't read that book itself, but it was definitely during lockdown at some point in 2020, probably fairly early to mid 2020, that in a professional study group that I'm part of, a fellow financial planner who's based in Australia, he introduced to the group this concept of Ikigai as a parallel to what we as sort of holistic financial planners do when we look at not only the client's money, but also how that money is there to serve the client's desired life. And it matches that concept, that Japanese concept of Ikigai so well. I was so impressed by it. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I would urge our listeners who are listening to us at this stage, definitely Google the concept and Google the book, of course, that Krish has recommended. You'll find it fascinating.
Yeah. It really is fascinating. I think because it can apply to any person, any profession. If you're not, enjoying what you're doing, and they say in life less is more, really. We don't need to be, it's just simple living, finding happiness in the small things, but finding that true joy and purpose in our profession helps as well as with other aspects too. It's a great read. I'm so pleased that that was introduced for financial planners as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any movies, Krish, or TV shows that you've recently watched that you'd recommend to our listeners?
So I think the Heal documentary is brilliant. It really is similar to the Eastern Japanese Ikigai as well, but it's just looking at how forming the right perspective and trying to change our perspectives in life can help us to attain wellness and overall vitality, really. And that does align well with one of our osteopathic principles, which is the body is its own medicine chest. Again, less is more. We don't really need to be. Do we need to be pumping ourselves with, lots and lots of blood pressure tablets? Could we look at, focusing on, if for example, if it's stress that's causing that blood pressure, could we focus on perhaps just socializing and doing the things we enjoy to help us relieve that stress? So again, it's looking at that mental-emotional connection to health, and the health is made up of more than just a physical aspect, and through that we can truly heal. And I definitely believe that our cells are almost the energy current for life, and they do respond to everything around us, the energy, what we the conversations we have, the music we listen to, the food we eat, everything. So yeah, the Heal documentary is great. I definitely recommend that.
Oh, thank you for that. And finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
So I'm on Facebook, but the Instagram platform is definitely, I will put up tips on there, videos explaining the work that I do. And that Instagram platform is called My OsteoPATH to Wellness _fitness. And also my website is myosteopath2wellness.com. So there's a bit more information on there for anybody. And I've got links on there for anybody that has any personal questions. They're welcome to email me as well. All contact details are on there too.
That's brilliant. And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure I add those links to the show notes. Krish, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you so much, Amyr. Thank you for your time.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.